Hey everybody, it's Mark Dolfini, Landlord Coach. I just got off a phone call with a coaching client of mine, and I thought this might make a good video. I'm also on the road driving for 4 hours across Illinois right now, so there's not a whole lot to do, and there's nothing but dead road in front of me, so I figured I'd just go ahead and do a quick video and keep my eyes on the road, of course. But the question that this student had, I thought was really good, and I wanted to address it in a video format because I get this question an awful lot about what makes up a good location when you're purchasing a rental property, and there really is not a great answer. I mean, for those of you who know, I'm going to go back to say, well, what's your vision for your future? What is it you're trying to accomplish? And making sure that the property that you're purchasing, first and foremost, is in alignment with your vision. Okay, so that's the first and foremost thing. I'm going to always go back to vision when I'm answering questions like that. So let's say, for argument's sake, that you understand, like, say your vision for your future is to generate $18,000 a month in free cash flow. Okay, so this property would be in alignment with that, and it aligns with your infrastructure that you put in place and the processes that you put in place. So this is all the VIP stuff that I talk about in the Time Wealthy Investor 2.0. So let's say, for argument's sake, that's all in alignment with that. All right, let's take that out of the equation for just a second. We're going to specifically talk about location. So what makes a good location? Well, it really does depend on your market and your ideal client avatar. And what do I mean by client avatar? So you really should have an idea of who the type of clientele that you're trying to work with, right? So if, let's say, for argument's sake, that you're wanting to work with just college students, well, in that particular case, obviously then, you obviously want to be near a specific campus, I'm sure, that you may have in mind. Maybe you only want to work within, Big Ten universities. Okay, that's fine. So that puts you in literally a certain number of campuses that you want to be within the Big Ten or the Big 12 or whatever. So that should help limit what you're looking for specifically. Let's say, for argument's sake, your ideal avatar is working with families, or maybe people who would want a specific type of house. They want a single-family dwelling, and not necessarily. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself too much, but you want to have an idea what your ideal avatar would look like, right? So, being a little bit careful about answering it that way. Say, well, I only want to work with families who have husband, wife, and 2 kids. Well, you want to stay out of fair housing issues like that, but it's okay to have an ideal avatar in terms of who your ideal client would be. And if that's the case, then you might want to say, well, I really want to only invest in properties that are in the suburbs that are in a specific school district. Okay, maybe a highly desirable school district, and you want to stay out of other areas. And that might make a better investment for you. Maybe you should think about the types of properties, especially if you're, again, maybe looking outside of your local area, but specifically that are friendly to, that are landlord friendly, that have courts that make decisions that are just and are friendly to landlords, right? There's lots of states, lots of local areas that are not necessarily friendly to landlords, where they may give, they may be very tenant friendly, where, if they haven't paid rent for 6 months, they say, well, let's give them an extra month or two before they have to be out. That's the sort of nonsense you just don't want to have to deal with. So, those are the sorts of things, so when you're thinking about location, it really isn't just about, having like a beachfront property. It may be the things that you're not really thinking about. You want to think of, good residents, good tenants are just like good homeowners. They're looking for the same things we are as homeowners, right? We're looking at things like school districts for their kids. They want to be safe. They want to be maybe in communities that maybe they do have a homeowners association because they don't want to deal with nonsense that is that maybe don't, in areas where there isn't a homeowners association, even though HOAs can be a real pain in the ass. A lot of times they really do also hold the residents there accountable for things like grass height and noise, and they don't want to have a camper parked in the street that you have to deal with and look at. Those are the sorts of things that necessarily sometimes bring value, and it's not always a negative thing. So those are the sorts of things, when you're thinking about location, think about all the things that would make, that you would want as a good resident, and things that you don't necessarily want to have to deal with. So that might, for you, that might eliminate investment in a multifamily property, when I know right now everybody loves the idea of multifamily properties. So if you're thinking about maybe a single family dwelling, a good standard that I used for years is I would never buy a property that I wouldn't be prepared to live in myself. And now, granted, my tastes have grown a little bit more, a little bit higher now, but I would, in a pinch, I would live in my properties, and it's not because they're in bad areas. They're just smaller than what I would generally want to live in, right? So, but I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I could live in a multifamily unit, just because I really don't want to share walls with people. So does it mean I wouldn't invest in multifamily? Not necessarily, but I would just say, that's not a bad standard. If you have a higher standard of living in a property, or being willing to live in a property that that you have, whereas if you have a property that you wouldn't live in, should you really be investing in it? And that might be something. Again, I'm just throwing out different ideas of different locations that you might want to consider when you're actually buying property. So it isn't always about physical location. Sometimes it's about the laws that you're having to deal with in that specific area. Sometimes it's dealing, it's thinking about school districts, and maybe you don't have children, in the house anymore, or maybe you don't have children at all, and a school district might be the last thing you might be considering. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it wouldn't be wouldn't be a good investment if it's a highly desirable school district. Okay, or again, if maybe you're not necessarily a college student, but you've grown past that, but would this be a desirable property for a college student to live in? So those are the sorts of things that you should be considering in terms of location. But again, go back to your vision. Make sure that that you understand what your vision is. So when you're making a decision, that you're making a decision based on an educated series of answers that you have based on the legal climate, the actual physical location, the school districts, and all the relevant details. So hopefully you found this helpful. As I say, please remember to place a value on your free time, or someone else will, I promise you. And remember, there is no amount of money that will make time irrelevant. Have a great day. Take good care.